The colony ship drifted through the darkness of space like a sleeping giant. Inside the new dawn, 3,000 people dreamed of their new home. Children slept in their beds. Mothers and fathers talked about the life waiting for them on the new planet. No one knew that death was already watching them. Captain Tejo sat in his command chair on the Earth Defense Station, thousands of miles away. He was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. His hand shook as he read the message on his screen. The new dawn had crossed into the wrong space. They had entered Velic territory by accident. The navigation system had failed. A simple mistake. A human mistake. The Velic were not known for mercy. They were tall reptilian creatures with scales like armor and eyes like cold fire. They believed that space belonged to the strong. When they found the new dawn drifting in their territory, they did not ask questions. They did not send warnings. They simply fired every weapon they had. The new dawn exploded in a flash of light. 3,000 human lives ended in seconds. Families, children, scientists, farmers, all of them gone. Just gone. Tejo watched it happen on his screen. He could not move. He could not breathe. He had friends on that ship. His cousin and her 2 children were on that ship. He stared at the empty space where the new dawn used to be, and felt something break inside him. On Earth, Dr. Jiwan received the news in her small office. She was the only human who had ever been invited to speak at the Galactic Council. She had spent 5 years trying to make the alien species understand humanity. She tried to build bridges between worlds. She believed in peace. She believed in talking instead of fighting. Now she stared at the report and felt her beliefs crumble like dust. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. 47 different alien species gathered in the great hall that floated in neutral space. The hall was beautiful, built from crystal and light. It was meant to be a place of peace and understanding. Today it would become something else. Jiwan stood alone in the center of the hall. Around her, thousands of alien representatives watched from their seats. Some looked like insects, others looked like clouds of gas. Some were so strange that human eyes could barely understand what they were seeing, but all of them looked down at her with the same expression. They thought humans were nothing. They thought humans were weak. The Velic ambassador rose from his seat. His name was unpronounceable to human tongues, so everyone just called him the Red Speaker. His scales gleamed like blood under the lights. He looked at Jiwan with eyes that held no emotion at all. "The human ship violated our sacred territory," he said. His voice was like stones grinding together. "This is a crime that demands payment. We require 5 human colonies as tribute. You will surrender them within 30 days. The people living there will be relocated. The worlds will belong to us. This is our justice." Jiwan felt her heart hammering in her chest. Those were innocent people, families, children, and you murdered them for an accident. You want us to give you more? You want us to reward you for killing our people? The Red Speaker tilted his head. "We want you to learn your place. You are new here. You are primitive. You do not understand how things work in civilized space." Other council members nodded. They agreed. To them, humans were like children who needed to be taught a lesson. They had all been traveling space for thousands of years. Some of them had been building empires before humans discovered fire. They saw Earth as a tiny young world that did not matter. "No," Jiwan said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the whole hall. "We will not give you anything. We will not reward murder." The council chamber filled with sounds of surprise. Aliens whispered to each other in 100 different languages. No one had ever refused the council before. No one had ever said no to their justice. The Red Speaker's eyes narrowed. "Then the Galactic Council has no choice. We vote now. All in favor of teaching humanity its proper place through military action, speak now." One by one, every single species voted yes. 47 votes. 47 species agreeing that humanity needed to be crushed. They did not vote for total war. They voted for a small war. A quick war. A war that would end in weeks with humanity begging for mercy. Jiwan watched them vote. She said nothing. She just turned and walked out of the hall. Behind her, the aliens laughed and talked about how the humans would soon learn. They talked about dividing human colonies among themselves. They made plans for what they would take from Earth. None of them knew what they had just done. Jiwan returned to Earth and went straight to military headquarters. Admiral Hyun-sik was waiting for her. He was an old man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. He had fought in the colony wars. He had commanded fleets. He knew what war really meant. They voted for war, Ji-won said. She was surprised that she was not crying. She felt empty inside. Hyun-sik nodded slowly. I know, we picked up the broadcast. The whole fleet knows. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel. They think this will be easy. They think we will surrender, won't we? Ji-won asked. They have 47 species. We have just one. They have weapons we have never seen. They have been fighting in space since before we built pyramids. The Admiral turned to look at her. His eyes were hard as stone. Dr. Ji-won, do you know what makes humans different from them? We are weaker, she said. We are younger. We are survivors, Hyun-sik interrupted. Every other species in that council evolved on peaceful worlds. They never had world wars. They never had extinction events. They never clawed their way up from the mud fighting for every single day of existence. But we did. Humans have been at war with something since the day we first stood upright. We fought animals. We fought disease. We fought each other. We fought ice ages and asteroids and plagues, and we never ever stopped. He walked to his desk and pressed a button. Screens lit up all around the room. They showed human ships preparing for war, soldiers training, weapons being loaded, factories building more ships, more guns, more bombs. They wanted to teach us a lesson, Hyun-sik said quietly. They will learn one instead. That night, Admiral Hyun-sik made a broadcast. Every human in every colony watched. Every ship in every fleet listened. The message was simple and cold. To the Galactic Council, the Admiral said, staring into the camera. You killed 3,000 of our people. You demanded we surrender more. You voted for war, so be it. You will have your war. But understand this. When you beg us to stop, when you plead for mercy, when your worlds burn and your fleets scatter like dust, remember this moment. Remember that you started this. Remember that we gave you a chance for peace, and remember that we will not stop until every single species that voted for this war pays the price. The message ended. Across human space, people understood. This would not be a war of surrender. This would not be a war of defeat. This would be a war of vengeance. Captain Taeho sat in his command chair and felt that broken thing inside him transform into something new. Something cold. Something sharp. The Velic had killed his cousin. They had killed her children. They had killed 3,000 innocent people. Now they would learn what it meant to make an enemy of humanity. The war had begun, and the galaxy had no idea what it had awakened. The first battle came 3 weeks after the Council's vote. The Velic sent 200 warships to crush the human colony on Threshold Station. They expected an easy victory. They expected humans to fight with honor and lose quickly. They were wrong about everything. Captain Taeho commanded the human defense fleet. He had only 40 ships. Most of them were old cargo vessels that had been fitted with weapons. A few were proper warships, but nothing compared to the massive Velic fleet. On paper, humanity had already lost, but Taeho did not care about paper. He cared about winning. The Velic fleet arrived in perfect formation. Their ships were beautiful, covered in ceremonial markings. Their commander sent a message demanding surrender. He gave the humans 1 hour to abandon Threshold Station and leave the system. Taeho sent back a simple reply. Come and take it. The Velic were confused. They sent another message explaining that resistance was impossible. They told the humans that this was their last chance to survive. They expected fear. They expected begging. They expected surrender. Instead, Taeho's fleet scattered in a dozen different directions. The ships did not stay in formation. They did not follow any recognizable battle plan. They moved like wild animals, unpredictable and chaotic. The Velic Admiral tried to pursue the closest human ships. He divided his fleet into groups to chase down each target. This was his first mistake. This was exactly what Taeho wanted. 5 human cargo ships flew straight at the largest Velic battle group. The Velic thought the humans were surrendering. They thought the cargo ships were trying to dock and give up. They were wrong. The cargo ships were filled with nuclear bombs. They rammed into the Velic vessels at full speed and detonated. The explosions tore through space like new suns. 50 Velic warships died in seconds. The humans died too, but they died taking their enemies with them. The rest of the galaxy watched in horror. The Velic Admiral could not believe it. They killed themselves? They committed suicide? But humans did not call it suicide. They called it sacrifice. There was a difference. While the Velic fleet was confused and scattered, Taeho's remaining ships attacked. They did not fight fairly. They hid behind asteroids and fired surprise attacks. They pretended to retreat and then turned around to launch missiles. They used every dirty trick that humans had learned from centuries of war on Earth. The Velic did not know how to respond. They had rules for warfare. They had honor codes and traditions. War was supposed to be noble. War was supposed to be clean. Human war was neither. Engineer Wu Jin sat in his workshop on one of the human ships. He was not a soldier. He was a mechanic and a builder, but he had an idea that would change everything. He worked for 72 hours without sleep, building something new. Something terrible. He called them ghost ships. They were small vessels controlled by advanced AI. They had no crew. They had no life support. They were just engines and bombs wrapped in metal. Wu Jin programmed them to act like regular ships until they got close to enemy flagships. Then they would accelerate to ramming speed and destroy themselves along with their target. The first ghost ship killed a Velic command carrier. The second destroyed a supply station. By the time the Velic realized what was happening, 15 more ghost ships were already hunting them. The Battle of Threshold Station lasted for 6 days. When it ended, the Velic had lost 180 ships. The humans had lost 35. The remaining Velic vessels retreated in chaos, broadcasting warnings about human insanity to the rest of the galaxy. But the story that spread across alien worlds was not about tactics or strategy. It was about Private Sujin. Sujin was a Marine stationed on Threshold Station. She was young, barely 20 years old. She had joined the military to see the galaxy, not to fight wars. When the Velic broke through the station's outer defenses, she found herself alone in a corridor with 50 alien warriors coming toward her. She could have retreated. She could have hidden. Instead, she stood her ground. For 6 hours, Sujin held that corridor. She used her plasma rifle until it overheated. Then she used her pistol until it ran out of bullets. Then she used a knife. Then she used a broken pipe. Then she used her bare hands. The Velic warriors were bigger and stronger, but Sujin had something they did not understand. She had rage. She had determination. She had the knowledge that behind her were civilians who needed time to evacuate. By the time human reinforcements arrived, Sujin was covered in blood. Some of it was hers. Most of it was not. Around her lay the bodies of 23 Velic warriors. She was still standing, still holding a bent piece of metal like a weapon, ready to fight more. The humans who found her said she looked like a demon from ancient legends. The Velic who survived her assault spread stories about the small human who could not be killed. They called her the Red Devil. They said she was proof that humans were not natural. They said humans must have been created by some evil god as weapons. They were not completely wrong. Dr. Jiwan listened to the reports from her office on Earth. She read about the suicide runs. She read about the ghost ships. She read about Sujin standing alone against an army. Part of her was horrified. This was not the humanity she wanted to represent to the galaxy. This was not peace and understanding, but another part of her understood. The galaxy had voted to destroy humanity. The galaxy had chosen war. Now they were learning what human war really meant. She spent her days intercepting alien communications. The messages she heard were not what she expected. The council species were not angry. They were afraid. The humans do not follow any rules, one message said. They hide, they lie, they kill themselves to kill us. How do we fight an enemy with no honor? Another message was worse. We lost 100 ships to 40. How is this possible? They are primitive. They are new. Why are they winning? A third message made Ji-won feel cold inside. We need to sue for peace before they reach our homeworld. We need to stop this war now. 3 council species sent peace delegations to Earth. They offered treaties and trade agreements. They offered technology and resources. They begged humanity to stop the fighting. Admiral Hyun-sik met with each delegation personally. He listened to their offers. He looked at their gifts. Then he said the same thing to all of them. No. The aliens were shocked. But we are offering peace. You are offering peace because you are losing, Hyun-sik replied. You voted for war when you thought it would be easy. You voted to crush us when you thought we were weak. Now you want peace because you realize you were wrong. But it is too late for peace. You killed 3,000 of our people. You demanded tribute. You laughed at us. Now you will pay the price. The delegations left Earth in terror. They returned to their homeworlds and told their leaders that humans could not be reasoned with. They said humans were like a storm that could not be stopped. They were right. Pilot Nari became the most feared human in the galaxy. She flew a fighter ship that she had personally modified. It was faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. It was more maneuverable than seemed physically possible. And Nari herself was a natural hunter. She destroyed her first enemy ship during the Battle of Threshold Station. By the end of the first month, she had destroyed 20. By the end of the second month, 43. She painted a small mark on her ship for each kill. Soon her fighter was covered in marks. The aliens started calling her the Ghost of the Void. They said she appeared from nowhere and disappeared like smoke. They said she could not be tracked or targeted. They said she had made a deal with death itself. Nari just smiled when she heard the stories. She knew the truth. She was not supernatural. She was just better than them. She had trained harder. She had studied more. And she had a reason to fight that the aliens could not understand. Her brother had been on the New Dawn. All across human space, similar stories emerged. Soldiers who fought beyond what should be possible. Engineers who built impossible weapons. Commanders who won battles they should have lost. Every human had a reason to fight. Every human had someone to avenge. The galaxy began to understand its mistake. These were not the primitive creatures they thought they were fighting. These were not weak newcomers who would surrender easily. These were survivors. These were warriors. These were the descendants of a species that had clawed its way to the top of Earth's food chain through pure determination and violence. And now that violence was turned outward at the stars 3 months after the war began, 15 council species had sued for individual peace. They offered reparations and apologies. They promised never to threaten humanity again. Admiral Hyun-sik accepted their surrenders, but only after forcing them to accept human military observers on their homeworlds. He wanted to make sure they learned their lesson. But the war was not over. The Velic refused to surrender. They refused to apologize. They said they would rather die than bow to humans. Captain Tejo decided to give them their wish. His fleet appeared above the Velic homeworld one morning. But he did not attack. He did not invade. He simply surrounded the planet and waited. The Velic demanded battle. Tejo ignored them. The Velic sent their remaining warships to break the blockade. Tejo's fleet destroyed them easily. Then he went back to waiting. Days passed. Then weeks. Then months. Tejo's ships did not let anything in or out. No food, no medicine. Admiral Hyun-sik stood in the war room staring at the holographic display. The map showed human territory in blue, former council territory in gray, and at the center of everything, pulsing red like a diseased heart, was the Kelthros hive. "Tell me everything we know," he said to Dr. Jiwan. Jiwan pulled up files on the screen. The Kelthros founded the Galactic Council 10,000 years ago. They are the oldest spacefaring species we know of. They created most of the technology that other species use. They wrote the laws that governed the Council. Then 800 years ago they just stopped. "Stopped what?" asked Captain Tejo, who had been called back from the Velic homeworld. "Everything. They went to sleep. The records say they entered some kind of biological stasis. No one knows why. The other council species just took over running things in their absence." Jiwan looked worried, but our attacks on council worlds woke them up. And from what we can tell, they are not happy. The screen changed to show a massive fleet, 3,000 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. The ships were organic, grown rather than built. They looked like massive insects made of metal and flesh. 3,000 warships, Tejo whispered. "That is more than our entire fleet." "It gets worse," Jiwan said. "The Kelthros are biologically immortal. They do not age. They share a telepathic link with each other. Every Kelthros thinks as one mind, and according to records they have never lost a war, not once in 10,000 years. Hyun-sik studied the display. "How long until they reach our territory?" 3 weeks, maybe 4. The Admiral nodded slowly. "Then we have 3 weeks to prepare. Tejo, gather every ship we have. Strip the colonies if you must. Everything we have goes to defending Earth. If they take our homeworld, nothing else matters." Over the next 3 weeks, humanity prepared for the biggest battle in its history. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon was moved to Earth's defense. Factories worked day and night building more guns, more missiles, more of everything. Children were evacuated to the outer colonies. Only soldiers and those who refused to leave remained. Engineer Wu Jin barely slept. He built more ghost ships. He built new types of mines. He built weapons that had never been tested because they were too dangerous. None of it seemed like enough. Private Su Jin, now promoted to sergeant for her actions at Threshold Station, trained new Marines in close combat. She taught them everything she had learned: how to fight when you were outnumbered, how to keep fighting when you were wounded, how to make every second count. Pilot Nari led squadron after squadron in training exercises. She pushed her pilots harder than they had ever been pushed. Some complained, some quit, but those who remained became the deadliest fighter pilots humanity had ever produced. The Kelthros arrived exactly on schedule. Their 3,000 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They moved in perfect formation like a single organism, because in a way they were. The Kelthros commander sent a message to Earth. Its voice was strange, as if many voices were speaking at once. Humans, you have disturbed the peace of the galaxy. You have attacked our children, the Council species. You have rejected all attempts at civilized resolution. Therefore, the Hive has awakened to correct this problem. Surrender now and we will make your extinction quick. Resist and we will make it slow. Admiral Hyun-sik replied personally. The Council killed our people first. They started this war. We are going to finish it. Come to Earth if you dare. We will show you what happens when you threaten humanity. The Kelthros fleet began moving toward Earth. They did not hurry. They did not seem concerned. They moved with the confidence of a species that had never known defeat. The first battle happened near Mars. Captain Taeho had 500 ships defending the Red Planet. The Kelthros sent 1,000 ships to crush them. The battle was brutal. Human ships used every trick they had learned. They used ghost ships and suicide runs. They used nuclear mines and surprise attacks. They fought with everything they had. But the Kelthros were different from other enemies. They adapted. They learned. After the first few ghost ships, they developed defenses. After the first few ambushes, they changed their formations. The Battle of Mars lasted 2 days. When it ended, Mars belonged to the Kelthros. Captain Taeho retreated to Earth with only 200 ships remaining. He had destroyed 300 enemy vessels, but it was not enough. The Kelthros kept coming. Next fell Europa Station, then Titan Base, then the asteroid mining colonies. One by one, humanity's outer defenses crumbled. The Kelthros moved like a tide, slow and unstoppable. Commander Dong-hyun led humanity's special forces teams. His job was to infiltrate enemy positions and cause chaos. He and his team managed to board a Kelthros ship and plant bombs. The ship was destroyed, but Dong-hyun was captured. The Kelthros broadcast his execution across every human channel. They wanted humanity to see what happened to those who resisted. Dong-hyun died bravely, shouting defiance until the end. His death broke something in many humans, but in others it lit a fire that would not be extinguished. Earth itself came under siege. The Kelthros surrounded the planet with 2,000 ships. They began bombarding military targets from orbit. Cities burned. Armies fought desperately against landing forces. Billions of humans evacuated to underground bunkers, but Admiral Hyun-sik and 2 million volunteers stayed above ground. They fought street by street, building by building. They made the Kelthros pay for every inch of Earth with blood. Sergeant Sujin led the defense of New Seoul. Her Marine units held the city center for 3 weeks against constant attacks. She became a legend once again, the soldier who would not die, who would not retreat, who would not surrender. Pilot Nari flew mission after mission, even as her squadron mates died around her. She destroyed ship after ship, always returning to rearm and launch again. Her fighter was held together with patches and prayers, but she kept flying. The rest of the galaxy watched Earth struggle. Some felt satisfaction seeing humanity finally beaten. Others felt fear. If the Kelthros destroyed humanity, what would stop them from never going back to sleep? What if the Hive decided the galaxy needed to be ruled directly? In her laboratory buried deep beneath what used to be Geneva, Dr. Jiwon made a discovery. She had been studying human genetics and comparing them to alien species. She found something that explained everything. The other species evolved on stable planets, she explained to Admiral Hyun-sik over a secure channel. Their worlds were peaceful. Predators were rare. Resources were abundant. They evolved intelligence, yes, but they never needed to be truly violent. War for them is like a sport, something with rules and boundaries. And humans? Hyunsik asked. Earth was hell, Ji-won said simply. Every predator on our planet was deadly. Resources were scarce. Ice ages came and went. Diseases killed millions. Other human tribes were our worst enemies. We evolved in constant warfare. Our brains are literally wired for violence and survival in ways alien brains are not. We are what happens when evolution makes a weapon instead of a thinker. Hyunsik was quiet for a moment. So we are monsters. No, Ji-won said firmly. We are survivors. The Kelthros think they are unstoppable because they have never lost. But they have never fought a species like us. They have never fought a species that was born in fire and forged in blood. While the battle for Earth raged, engineer Wu Jin completed his greatest and most terrible work. He called it Project Twilight. With help from hundreds of other scientists and engineers, he built a network of quantum-entangled bombs. 400 systems, 400 massive explosives, each powerful enough to destroy a planet. The bombs were hidden in empty systems. They were hidden near gas giants. They were hidden in asteroid fields. And most importantly, some were hidden in orbit around Council homeworlds, worlds that had voted for humanity's destruction, worlds that were now watching Earth burn. When Admiral Hyunsik learned about Project Twilight, he sat in silence for a long time. This is genocide. If we use this, we will kill trillions of innocent aliens. Yes, Wu Jin said. He looked tired and old, though he was only 30. But if we do not use it, humanity dies. Every human, every child, everyone we have ever known. The Kelthros will not stop. They will not negotiate. Our only choice is to make them afraid. We have to threaten something so terrible that even they will back down. And if they do not back down, Hyunsik asked, what if they call our bluff? Wu Jin met his eyes. Then we make sure it is not a bluff. We take the galaxy with us. Admiral Hyunsik made the hardest decision of his life. He activated Project Twilight. He sent a message to the Kelthros hive and broadcasted it to every species in the galaxy. Kelthros, you think you have won? You think humanity is beaten? You are wrong. We have placed quantum bombs in 400 systems. Some of those systems are empty. Some contain Council homeworlds. Some contain your supply lines. Some contain your breeding worlds. We know where all of them are. You do not. He paused to let that sink in. Leave Earth now. Leave human space. Return to your sleep. If you do not, we will detonate every single bomb. We will destroy 400 worlds. We will kill trillions. And we will do it with a smile, knowing that if humanity dies, we will take the entire galaxy with us. The Kelthros did not respond immediately. The Kelthros fleet disappeared into deep space like shadows fleeing from light. Their 3,000 ships, reduced to barely 1,700, retreated to the dark edges of the galaxy. They had come to crush humanity and instead learned the meaning of fear. For a species that had ruled for 10,000 years, the lesson was devastating. But humanity barely noticed the Kelthros leaving. Earth was dying. Captain Taeho stood in the ruins of Beijing and could not recognize the city he had visited as a child. Buildings that had stood for centuries were now twisted metal and broken stone. The sky was dark with smoke. Bodies lay in the streets, covered with sheets by workers who moved like ghosts through the destruction. He had won the war. He had defended Earth. But looking at the devastation around him, victory felt hollow and bitter. We saved Earth, said one of his officers, a young woman named Hijin who had lost her entire family in the bombardment. We should be celebrating. Taeho shook his head. We saved what is left of Earth. That is not the same thing. Reports came in from around the planet. New Seoul was mostly rubble. New York had been evacuated but was now uninhabitable due to radiation. Mumbai had survived, but half its population had not. Tokyo, Paris, Cairo, São Paulo all bore the scars of Kelthros attacks. 4 billion people were dead. 4 billion. The number was so large it lost meaning. How do you mourn 4 billion people? How do you even comprehend that much loss? Dr. Ji-won worked in a field hospital on what used to be the outskirts of Shanghai. She was not a medical doctor, but everyone who could help was helping. She bandaged wounds and held the hands of dying children and tried not to think about what humanity had become. A soldier brought her a message. Admiral Hyunsik wanted to see her at military headquarters. She cleaned the blood from her hands and made her way through the ruined city. The headquarters had survived mostly intact, protected by heavy shields. Inside, military officers rushed back and forth, managing the aftermath of war. Jiwan found the Admiral in his office, staring at a wall of screens showing the damage across Earth. "We need to talk about Project Twilight," Hyun-sik said without preamble. "The bombs are still active. 301 of them are still out there, hidden, ready to detonate." Jiwan felt cold. "We cannot keep them. We use them to scare the Kelthros, but if we keep them, we are no better than the council species that tried to destroy us." "Some of my officers disagree," Hyun-sik said quietly. "They say we need the bombs as insurance. They say without them, the galaxy will attack us again as soon as we show weakness." "And what do you say?" The Admiral was silent for a long moment. "I say I am tired. I say I have made too many terrible decisions. I say I need someone to tell me what is right because I no longer know." Jiwan sat down across from him. "We won the war. But if we keep weapons designed for genocide, we lose our souls. We become the monsters the galaxy thinks we are." Before Hyun-sik could respond, alarms started blaring. Officers burst into the room. "Sir, we have a situation. A Kelthros fleet is approaching Earth again. Not the main fleet, a smaller one. About 50 ships. Taeho was called in immediately. His remaining ships, barely 100 vessels in working condition, moved to intercept." Everyone feared the worst. The Kelthros had regrouped. The war was not over. More death was coming. But when the Kelthros ships reached Earth, they did not attack. They stopped at a respectful distance and broadcast a message. This time the voice sounded different, broken, weak. "Humans, the Hive comes to negotiate. We seek ending. We seek peace. True peace, not surrender under threat but actual understanding." This was unprecedented. The Kelthros had retreated, yes, but they had never acknowledged defeat. They had never asked for understanding. Admiral Hyun-sik went up to meet them in person. He took only a small escort, including Jiwan and Taeho. They boarded a Kelthros ship, half expecting a trap. The interior of the ship was organic, like being inside a living creature. It was beautiful in an alien way, all curves and soft lights. The Kelthros who met them looked tired, if insects could look tired. Their movements were slow, hesitant. The Kelthros speaker, who called herself a voice rather than a commander, touched her head in what seemed to be a gesture of respect. "You broke us," she said simply. "When your pilot destroyed our flagship, we felt thousands die at once. The pain spread through our telepathic link. Every Kelthros felt it. We have never experienced loss like that. We did not know it was possible." "Good," Taeho said coldly. "Now you understand what you did to us. 3,000 died on the New Dawn. Billions died defending Earth. We have felt that pain for months." "Yes," the voice agreed. "And we understand now why you fought as you did. We read your history. We studied your species. You evolved in pain. You learned to fight because not fighting meant death. We evolved in paradise. We learned to dominate because no one could resist us. We thought we were teaching you a lesson. Instead, you taught us one." Admiral Hyun-sik studied the alien carefully. "What do you want from us?" "Peace," the voice said. "Real peace. We will dismantle our military. We will return to sleep. But before we do, we want to help you rebuild Earth. We have technology that can heal worlds. We can restore your cities, clean your radiation, even help with your wounded. This is not payment. Payment could never be enough. This is just what we can offer." Jiwan stepped forward. "Why? Why would you help us after we fought so hard?" The voice made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Because we finally understand. The galaxy has been stagnant for 10,000 years. We ruled and everyone obeyed and nothing changed. We made the galaxy peaceful but also weak. You humans are violent and chaotic and frightening. But you are also passionate and brave and unwilling to give up. The galaxy needs that. We need that. We need to remember that survival means more than just living. It means being willing to fight for what matters." The negotiation took 3 days. In the end, a treaty was signed. The Kelthros would help rebuild Earth and the human colonies. In exchange, humanity would deactivate Project Twilight. The bombs would be dismantled. Both species would commit to never using weapons of mass genocide again. Some humans objected. Some wanted revenge. Some wanted to keep the bombs. But most people, exhausted by war and death, wanted peace. They wanted to rebuild. They wanted to remember what it felt like to live without fear. While the Kelthros began their work on Earth, the rest of the galaxy watched nervously. 31 species approached humanity with offers of alliance. They wanted protection, They wanted trade. They wanted to be on humanity's good side. The Galactic Council officially dissolved. In its place, a new organization formed. They called it the Terran Accord. Humanity did not rule it, but they were its strongest voice. The days of council arrogance were over. The age of human influence had begun. Sergeant Su Jin returned to the ruins of New Seoul, her hometown. She helped with reconstruction, using her soldiers' strength to move rubble and build shelters. Children followed her everywhere, calling her a hero. She did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had survived when too many others had not. One day a group of Velic came to New Seoul. They were not warriors. They were civilians, merchants, and teachers. They had come to help rebuild. They had brought supplies and medicine in their own hands to work with. Su Jin almost attacked them on sight. These were the species that started everything. These were the ones who killed the new dawn. But then she saw that they were crying. Velic did not cry often, but these ones did. They were crying for what their government had done. They were crying for the dead. "We cannot bring them back," one Velic said to Su Jin. "We cannot fix what was broken. But we can help build something new. If you will let us." Su Jin stared at them for a long time. Then she nodded and handed one of them a shovel. "Then start digging. We have a lot of work to do." Captain Taeho was offered a promotion to admiral, but he refused. He did not want to command fleets anymore. He had seen enough war. Instead, he became ambassador general, the human face of diplomacy. He traveled to alien worlds and spoke about peace. But everyone who met him knew that he carried a gun and knew how to use it. Peace backed by strength. That was the human way now. Engineer Wu Jin personally dismantled every bomb in Project Twilight. It took him 6 months. Each bomb he deactivated felt like lifting a weight from his soul. When the last one was gone, he sat in his workshop and cried. He had built weapons that could destroy the galaxy. Now he wanted to build things that helped instead of hurt. He designed new engines that made space travel faster. He designed tools that made terraforming easier. He designed medicine that worked for both humans and aliens. His name, which had once been associated with death, became associated with hope. The galaxy did not forget what humanity had done. They did not forget the suicide runs or the ghost ships or the 300 systems that died as a warning. But they also did not forget that humanity had chosen peace when they could have chosen revenge. They had deactivated the bombs. They had accepted help from former enemies. They had proven they were more than just warriors. Dr. Ji-won founded the Institute for Galactic Understanding. Its purpose was to teach aliens about human psychology and teach humans about alien cultures. She wanted to make sure that future conflicts would be solved with words instead of weapons. 5 years had passed since the war ended. Earth looked different now. The scars remained, but they were healing. Buildings stood where rubble had been. Trees grew in parks that had been blast craters. Life, stubborn human life, had returned. Ambassador General Taeho stood before a gathering of alien representatives in the grand hall of the new Terran Accord headquarters. The building floated in neutral space just like the old Galactic Council Hall had. But this hall was different. It was built by many species working together. Human steel and Kelthros biotechnology and Velic crystal work all combined into something beautiful. 40 species had joined the Terran Accord. Some joined because they wanted protection. Some joined because they saw opportunity. Some joined because they genuinely believed in what humanity was trying to build. A galaxy where no one species ruled. A galaxy where disagreements were settled with words instead of weapons. But today was not about politics. Today was about remembering. 5 years ago, Taeho began, his voice carrying through the hall. The Galactic Council voted to destroy humanity. 47 species agreed that we should be crushed. They thought we were weak. They thought we were primitive. They thought we would surrender without a fight. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. Many of them had been part of that vote. Many of them still felt shame about it. They were wrong, Taeho continued. But we were wrong too. We thought we had to prove we were strong by being more violent than anyone else. We thought we had to make the galaxy fear us. We sacrificed millions of our own people. We threatened to commit genocide. We showed the galaxy our worst side. He paused and looked around the hall. But we also showed you something else. We showed you that we could choose to be better. When we had weapons that could destroy everything, we chose to dismantle them. When we had enemies at our mercy, we chose to help them rebuild instead of destroying them further. We chose peace when revenge would have been easier. An old Valak stood up. His scales had lost their color with age. Human Teho, my people know we started this war. We fired the first shot. We killed the new dawn. Every Valak child learns about our shame. We teach them so they never forget what pride and cruelty cost. But I must ask, why did you forgive us? Why did you let us help rebuild? We deserve destruction. Teho looked at the old Valak for a long moment. Because destruction is easy. Building is hard. We could have wiped out your species. We thought about it. But what would that prove? That we were exactly what you thought we were? Monsters? He shook his head. No. We chose to show you that humans are more than just warriors. We are also teachers and builders and dreamers. We fight when we must, but we prefer to live in peace. That is the lesson we wanted to teach. Not fear, but hope. The hope that anyone, even the worst enemy, can choose to be better. Dr. Jiwan watched from the side of the hall. She was proud of Teho. He had learned to turn his anger into something constructive. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a bridge between worlds. After the ceremony, Jiwan returned to her institute. Students from a dozen species were studying together, learning about each other's cultures. A young human student was teaching a Kelthros about Earth's history. A Velik was explaining their religion to a group of curious listeners. This was the future Jiwan had dreamed about during the dark days of war. Not conquest, but understanding. Not domination, but cooperation. One of her students, a quiet girl named Young Mi, approached her after class. Dr. Jiwan, I have a question. My grandfather died in the war. He was on one of the ships that did a suicide run. Was his death worth it? Did it matter? Jiwan sat down with the girl. Your grandfather died protecting Earth. Because of him and thousands like him, humanity survived. Because humanity survived, we were able to make peace. Because we made peace, you can sit in this classroom with alien students and learn instead of fight. Yes, his death mattered. Every death mattered. We honor them by building the world they died to protect. Young Mi nodded, tears in her eyes. I want to do something that matters too. Like he did. Then study hard, Jiwan said gently. Learn about other species. Teach them about us. Build friendships across the stars. That is how you honor him. Not by dying for humanity, but by living for it. In a small workshop on Earth, engineer Wu Jin was working on a new project. He was designing a memorial. Not a statue or a building, but something living. A vast garden that would grow on the moon, visible from Earth. Each plant would represent someone who died in the war. 4 billion plants for 4 billion people. It would take decades to complete. Wu Jin did not care. He had the rest of his life to work on it. Building the memorial gave him peace. Every plant he programmed was an apology. He had built weapons that could destroy worlds. Now he would build a garden that would last forever. His assistant, a young Kelthros engineer named Softwing, asked him why he spent so much time on the memorial. The dead cannot see it, Softwing pointed out. Why work so hard for those who are gone? The memorial is not for the dead, Wu Jin explained. It is for the living. It is a reminder. Every time someone looks at the moon and sees the garden, they will remember what war costs. They will remember that peace is worth fighting for, and maybe, just maybe, they will choose to solve their problems without violence. Sergeant Su Jin had retired from military service. She worked as a construction foreman now, rebuilding New Seoul. Her crew was mixed, humans and Velik and others working side by side. Some days it was strange working with Velik. Some days she still felt anger when she looked at them. But she also saw how hard they worked. She saw them sweat and struggle and push themselves to exhaustion. They were trying to make amends. She respected that. She did not forgive easily, but she could work beside them. That was something. One day, a young Velik worker fell from a scaffold. Sujin caught him without thinking, using her enhanced strength to grab him before he hit the ground. The Velik stared at her in shock. You saved me. After everything my people did, you saved me. Sujin set him down carefully. I did not save a Velik, I saved a worker. Someone who was helping rebuild my city. That is what matters now. Not what species you are, but what you choose to do. The young Velik bowed deeply. Thank you. Sujin nodded and went back to work. Later, she would realize that the incident had been seen by news cameras. Her action would be broadcast across the galaxy. It would become a symbol of the new relationship between species. The warrior who chose mercy. The hero who saved her former enemy. She did not care about symbols. She just wanted to build homes for people to live in. Pilot Nari's story had a different ending. Her sacrifice at the Kelthros flagship had been the turning point of the war. She had been declared dead, her body lost in space. Statues had been built in her honor. Songs had been written about her final flight. But Nari was not dead. She had survived the crash barely. Her fighter had been too damaged to send a signal. She had drifted in space for weeks, her life support failing, before a human rescue ship found her by pure chance. By the time they found her, she was more dead than alive. It took 2 years of medical treatment for her to recover. She woke up to a galaxy at peace and a world that thought she was a legend. She did not feel like a legend. She felt tired and old even though she was only 28. The military offered to give her a command position. She refused. She did not want to fly warships anymore. Instead, she became an instructor at the Civilian Flight Academy, teaching young pilots how to navigate between stars safely. She taught them to love flying, not for war, but for the joy of movement through space. Sometimes her students asked her about her final battle. She never told them the full story. She just said, "I did what needed to be done. You would have done the same." Admiral Hyun-sik lived alone by the ocean, but he was not lonely. People visited him often. Veterans who needed to talk. Officers who sought advice. Students who wanted to understand what he had gone through. He answered their questions honestly. He did not hide his regrets. He did not pretend the decisions had been easy. He told them about the weight of command, the cost of every choice, the way victory could feel like defeat when you counted the dead. "Would you do it again?" a young officer asked him once. "If you could go back, would you make the same choices?" Hyun-sik thought about this for a long time. "I do not know," he finally said. "I saved humanity. But I also scarred us. I showed the galaxy that we were capable of terrible things. Maybe someone smarter could have found a better way. Maybe someone braver could have taken more risks. All I can tell you is that I did what I thought was right at the time. That is all anyone can do." The Kelthros kept their promise. After helping Earth rebuild, they returned to their homeworld and went back to sleep. But before they did, they left something behind. They left a communication device that could wake them if humanity ever needed help. And they left a message. "You taught us that survival is not enough. You taught us that life without purpose is just slow death. We sleep now, but we sleep with dreams instead of emptiness. If you ever need us, call. We will answer. Not as rulers, but as friends." The message was displayed in the Terran Accord Hall, a reminder that even ancient enemies could become allies. 10 years after the war, a human colony ship launched from Earth.